Doing a neck and shoulder trim on a Springer Spaniel. I have already stripped out this hair with the knife, which is very important that you strip out the hair on the neck and shoulder until you no longer get any more hair out. Be very careful and conscious when you are looking at their neck that you don't want to take off the hair in the middle of the neck right away. We're going to save that for last. We're only going to focus on the sides. This is where your mirror comes in handy because you're going to stand the dog up and you're going to see whether the dog needs more neck, less neck, a flatter shoulder, where there's hair that needs to come off, hair that needs to be left. I use my mirror every time I trim a dog, and I'm lost without it. Now is where your smaller knife comes in handy. This is another Arturo knife. This is a smaller tooth with more teeth in it because this is where we're going to do more finer trim and work on the neck and shoulder to get a little bit more hair out in the areas that it needs out. So I take the smaller toothed knife and I just trim just on the sides of the neck at first. Now I'm hardly getting any hair out. Now it's real important for you to get good thinning scissors. These thinning scissors have the most teeth in it, and these happen to be Whitman thinning scissors, which I like. So I take the comb and the scissor, and we're going to do what's called back trimming. We are going to start not where the actual shoulder is. The shoulder is here. We're going to start a little bit below that. We're going to back scissor all up on the sides to get this nice and flat and blend in where my clipper line is. So I start a little bit behind the shoulder, and see how I have his ears pinned up with a clip, and that just keeps his ears out of the way for me so that I can see a little bit more what I'm doing. So now I'm lifting the hair, and I'm using my scissor the whole time. I'm not stopping, I'm constantly moving. That's very important. Then you stop and comb so that you can see where the hair is laying. You don't want to trim in the same spot for very long because you're going to make a hole. So you want to keep moving the scissor the whole time. And you also want to make sure that the dog is standing the whole time. You don't want to do any of this stuff while the dog is sitting because you want them to be in a show stand so that you can see. Now I'm only doing the sides of the neck and the shoulder. I'm just going to keep combing that so that I can see where the hair is laying. You keep looking in the mirror so that you can see what you're doing. And then you blend all of these lines in. I'm lifting the comb and I'm using the smaller teeth so that I'm getting a more finer, thinner blend. And then I just keep blending in this line until I can look in the mirror and I don't see that there is a line there anymore. So if there still is and you can't get too much more hair, then instead of going backwards because you don't want this to get too terribly shorter, then you can always go with the grain and blend it in this way. Once you get this line all blended in, and you can stand behind the dog, and you look in the mirror, and I'm real happy with the way that this is all blended in right here. So I'm going to stop with that part. Now this starts to get a little tricky. This dog, for me, does not have tons of hair in his bib so that it looks like his front is sitting up underneath himself as much as I would like it to be right now still. So I'm going to utilize this line of this dog when I look in the mirror, because you can see it makes him look like his front legs are up here when I really actually want them back here. So I'm going to utilize this line in here and trim it to where I want it to make it look that his legs are. So I take my thinning scissors and I'm going to take the brown off so that it makes it look like his front legs are up underneath him where I want them to be. You can use, when all the dogs are marked all different ways, you try to utilize their markings to the best of your advantage. Try to use them to your advantage instead of to a disadvantage. Some dogs are brown down to here, so you want to make them look like they have a little bit more legs, so you want to trim this brown up a little bit more. There's all different kinds of things that you can do. So now once all this hair is all blended in, and see how nice and flat that this looks, I've now taken this brown in here back a little bit more, so now it looks like his front leg is up underneath him where it needs to be. So I've taken all this brown off. Now once you stop doing that, you can always come in here with a knife and pull this hair off if you don't want to do it with a scissor. And then you take your scissor, and I'm going straight up with the scissor to blend this hair in a little bit more so I can get this into a little bit of a fancier trim and get this white out of here to show a little bit more of the brown, because it's going to make him look like he's underneath himself a little bit more. Then you come back and look in the mirror again. Every time you do something, stand them back up in a show stand, comb it out, and then you can see how it looks and make sure that they're standing up underneath their front. Now, once you've gotten all that part done, a lot of dogs are marked like this on the back of their neck. You want to utilize their markings to your advantage. So instead of leaving this brown hair that's covering this white, what I always do before I start going into it and taking off the brown hair, I pull it up with my fingers. And then I look at it in the mirror and decide whether I think that that's going to look good or not. And on this particular dog, that's what I'm going to want to do. So I take the thinning scissors and I'm going to do the back combing again. Again, I'm only going on the sides right now. I'm not going into the back. Then I take the scissor and I'm just going to carve in very lightly, trimming off this brown that's going into the white. And I'm just kind of lifting up those hairs, because if you go and you cut into it, you're going to make a more drastic mark than what you want to do. So I just kind of lift the scissors up lightly, blend this line in. And now when I look at it in the mirror, from where it was before, it's given them another ½ inch of neck. And it's just made this be a prettier look than having this brown that is covering up the top of his neck here. Okay, so now, after I've done that, I go back and I stand them up, look at the mirror, comb it all down, and now I've given them another ½ inch of neck. Okay, so we're going to go back to our fine knife again, and I'm going to start on the other side now, laying it flat, and I'm just dragging it through the hair just to pull out the dead undercoat, is all I'm doing at this point. I don't want to shorten it, so I'm going to do that with my scissors. I'm just dragging it through and just pulling out the dead undercoat. Then take your thinning scissors. I'm going to start below the shoulder I'm going to lift the hair, and I'm going to constantly move my scissor. This is called top trimming. You're constantly moving, and you're constantly going in an upward direction. I'm still not touching the middle of the neck. We're going to do that last. Right now, I'm just making his shoulder flat. Again, I have his ears tied up over his face so it keeps him out of my way. And then you're blending in your line from your clipper. What you're doing in here, you want to make sure that you go and you stand in the front of the dog, and you can see the difference between this side and this side, so I want them to match. So I'm going to take off this hair that's in here so that I can, again, go with the front so that this front is sitting up underneath them. So I'm going to make this illusion of all this hair being flat, because then once I get this all trimmed, this is going to set underneath himself a little bit better. So again, right now we're just taking it off the sides and blending in the clipper work. Okay, now I'm ready to start doing the back of the neck. So again, I'm going to top trim, but I'm only taking off the very tips. Very gently, very slowly, so you can just make sure that you're not making their hair shelf. I see a lot of people that do that and they get too aggressive in this area, and you can't make that hair lay down once you take it off. You can always take off more. And then that's all I'm going to do to a shoulder.